Hey, it's Dan here from regenerateyourlife.org, and we're going to make another video about maybe, I don't know, was it about 10 days ago or something?
About 10 days ago. It's
Think
going
so?
on. It's going on 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're paying attention to how long you've been raw,
Right.
and that's the day you met me.
Right.
And we've helped each other a lot since then.
And last Wednesday I was here, and it was my son's birthday.
Yeah. And you came and
Yeah.
spent pretty much the whole day, right?
Came as I just escaped life. I escaped everybody. I escaped all my responsibilities. Nobody knew where I was, and I came over here to spend the day with you.
Your son, who is no longer with us,
Right.
which is kind of like what inspired us to make this video.
Yeah.
To talk about maybe how miracles can happen and the universe or God, whatever you want to call it, can bring people into your life that can really help you if and when you're ready and willing. And willing I am, you know?
All right. So last Wednesday was my son's birthday. He passed away 10 years ago. I never was really at peace in my heart with his passing. There was just this big hole, and I thought I would have it there for the rest of my life. And last Wednesday, spending the day with Dan and realizing how much he is like a son to me, how much I love him and appreciate him, a healing happened in my heart. It was really beautiful. And at one point he said to me, he hugged me, and he said, "Is that hole filled?" Remember? And
By the door.
and when you said that, it felt like that's when the healing took place, right at that moment. You know, it was kind of a little awkward, but then I felt like I wanted to just receive that. And as I did, I had this great peace, and as I was driving home, I realized how I was celebrating my son's life and all he was to me and who he was as a person. And now I can see him, and I see all the beautiful things that we experienced, and I'm thankful that he was in my life for 37 years. And what a great person. And he was loved by so many people because he was so sweet and caring and loving, and he always reached out and cared about other people. And you are that same type of person. And it just, I don't know, I'm kind of at a loss for words right now because it's an emotional thing, it's a personal thing, but I want to share it because it's beautiful. It's beautiful that miracles do happen. And I would like to tell you a little bit about my son. He was a musician. He was very handsome, kind, gentle, compassionate person. When he was a baby, he had his immunizations. And shortly after that, he started having high fevers, 106. And I mean, the doctors didn't know what was wrong. They said, put him in ice water, you know, or put ice cubes on him, icy water. And he's this little baby, and I'm putting ice on him, and he's crying and crying, and it was horrible. But I was young. I was very young when I had him. And so
How old?
I was 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Same thing with my mom.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I was 16, and so his name is Søren Chase, and we grew up together. And I think that's why we were so bonded and so close, because we went through so much together.
We were like kids.
We were like kids, yeah. You know, I grew up in the 60s, and he was right there by my side, and, you know, living everywhere I was living, hanging out in, you know, hippie concerts and all of these different things. And
That's cool.
anyway, so our spirituality bloomed at the same time in the same way. I mean, we just really grew together and grew up together, and we were so bonded. But so he had these high fevers, and then when he was about 5, he started sleepwalking, and I couldn't wake him up, and he would be full of fear and trying to get out of the house. And all I could do was take him in my bed and just hold him and tell him everything's going to be okay until he would relax and calm down. And that went on every so often, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, then when he was about 12, he was staying with his dad, and he fell out of bed and he had a seizure. And they found him having a seizure. And that's when we discovered that he had been having seizures all along, because when he had that seizure, he got up and he walked around and he was disorientated. And it was really terrible, because he would bite his lips and his tongue, and
Yeah.
he was disabled. He wasn't able to hold down a job, because you know, you have a seizure, you need a couple of days to rest, and you can't have a job and have seizures and expect them to keep you employed. So it was really difficult for him. But you know, he was a trooper.
You know it's vaccines.
Yeah.
I just made a video today about that, which I couldn't post because I was so pissed off. I mean, I'm pretty chill. Like I was saying in the video, I don't care if you smoke cocaine or have 500 sex partners or worship the devil. But the vaccine thing, that just makes me feel like that's some straight up evil death stuff.
Yeah.
And I made a video, and I couldn't post it on YouTube to get me in trouble, but it was a 6-month-old baby, and the lady was like, don't vaccinate, you know, trying to tell a relative, don't vaccinate the baby, don't do, but they did it anyways, and after the 3rd vaccine, the baby got some new funky ass weird called disease. And same thing with my little nephew. Vaccines, sudden infant death syndrome. I mean, you know, stop breathing. And nobody correlates it. And it's
Right.
just like, and then there's other of us that might have had a stronger immune system but got vaccinated, and still to this day it's kind of like, what's
But who knows, you know, what really happened? Who knows what's going on inside of us? You know, if there's organ dysfunction
well,
from those vaccines.
neurological damage.
Neurological damage.
Which is damage to the body, because
Right.
the brain and the nerves and everything are intimately connected, and we spend a lifetime recovering from that, and that's why we do the raw foods, the fasting, all of it. That's why I do it, because I'm recovering from the state of our society collectively, but I'm able to tap into a universal source of power and get information and energy on how to actually regenerate the nerves using different herbs and supplements and fasting to remove the heavy metal deposits, as well as using the enzymes to break up the protein blocking, which is thrown up. You know, like if your son was here now and we had this information,
Right.
things can be
It
done.
would, right.
But back then,
Yeah.
you don't even hardly know.
We didn't know what to do. So he was on medication. For years he was on something called Dilantin.
Yeah.
And then they changed it. You know, they come out with newer medications. And his nervous system, you know, his hands would shake. And he had a couple of mental breakdowns because it affected his brain. And it was very difficult. It was very painful, you know, sitting with him in the hospital and watching him go through what he went through, and the agony and the pain, the mental anguish and pain. I don't know. I think sometimes suffering mentally is so much harder than suffering physically. But he really suffered, and he was looking forward to leaving this world. You know, he didn't quite really fit in this world. He was very angelic, and so I'm very happy for him.
A lot of people feel that way. This life is not easy. We've talked about that.
Right.
But, you know, it's still awesome. I mean,
It's what you.
let's go to heaven, right? Well, just
Right.
like Sadhguru was saying last night, you know, why are you in a hurry to go to heaven? Why don't you just go there now? You know what I mean?
Right.
But because some part of you really loves this life, and then there's the other part of you that thinks, oh, it will be a relief because this body and all these programs that go along with it can create a sense of, really, like, I'll just tell you, like, over the last little while, I've noticed through the fasting and counseling and awareness, that there's a state coming out of the unconscious mind it's a fearful state, and it's ever present. Yes, you can get distracted through food or sex or other different types of titillations, but as you begin to calm down and become more present, you can become aware how out of the back of the mind, just programmed with fear within our family and social environments at that young age, where we were just absorbing from
Right.
the ages of 0 to 7, and we're building the amygdala and reinforcing different biological structures. And then when you get to be 40 years young, you're like, holy crap, I kind of live in a semi-panicked, anxious state all the time in regards to, relationships, finances, health. And then you start to get to the point where you really want to do that work. And that's what we're doing here on this channel. If you stay around, you'll see the DTM rocking this thing, because it's definitely happening. I think counseling is good, enzymes are good, raw food is good, fasting is good.
And you need to
touch,
have people in your life that inspire you.
and a support network. And
Right.
that's what I was, DTM, the lone soldier. I don't need anybody living on the streets, living in my van, walking around by myself, sack of weed in my pocket, tequila flask in my back pocket, working maybe one day a week, just enough to get, money for whatever, and then sleeping all over the place. And then now I'm just reaching out to people.
Right. And when we're young and we're going through all that we're going through, the pain and the suffering, and we're collecting all this baggage, right? We don't have the tools to deal with it, and we don't know how to process it. And then we get, we could go our whole lives that way and
Right.
be stuck.
Because we never saw a video like this one.
Right. And so your life is what you make it. And if you choose to have a new perspective and perceive things differently, if you're willing to choose to see things in a different way and to perceive things and to open your heart and to open your mind and to see that, boy, maybe I have some stinking thinking going on here and I need a detox.
Right.
Right? And I need a connection between the heart and the brain because, they're connected.
Yeah.
In fact, I know you did a video on marijuana and why you don't smoke marijuana, and I haven't seen that one, but I was talking to a doctor once who told me that they had been doing studies on divers who had smoked marijuana for years, and that they found a disconnect between the heart and the brain. And I thought, wow.
In the nervous system.
In the nervous system. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a pothead. You end up all in your head.
And because you smoked. It's like these other people below my videos are like, yo, man, just smoke some weed, Dan. You're being a stupid ass. I'm trying to justify my thing. And I'm like, you can smoke whatever you want. I had plenty of years of smoking dope. The first time I asked my dad for a toke of weed, I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
I was in the woods rolling up some weed with the Bible papers at 8. So don't tell me I don't know something about some weed and how my life, do I have that tool anymore to chill out and escape?
Right.
No. So do I got to face everything? Because now I don't even have the cooked foods. Now I don't have nothing to escape from.
Well, it's like taking an antidepressant, really. I mean, if that's what you're using it for, to chill out. And I know marijuana is an herb, and it can be used medicinally, but I don't personally, I wouldn't take fire into my lungs and smoke into my lungs because I value them. And I value reality and being clear-minded.
Yeah. So, I'm not trying to judge or anything like that,
Right.
but I'm just saying there's higher levels to get to, and to get really, you want to get stoned naturally.
Yeah.
And
And boy, you can, especially on a water fast.
well, certain ways, I'm looking at things like energetically too, like on more what the etheric, transcendental type,
Right.
not even really body, emotions, or mind, but that which goes, expands even beyond that, and then really getting quiet and experiencing that, and that can be.
Right.
Pretty good vibe. So the one thing I want to say before we wrap this video up is the one thing that you said in this video that really, actually I had my head turned towards you so they didn't see the tears coming out of my eyes, but when you said you held your son and told him that everything was going to be okay, it made me think, wow, I wish I had that, you know? And what I wanted to do was say on this video, if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. What I want to say is, think about if you ever have an opportunity to hold somebody. It doesn't matter if you're 6 months, if that little person that you're holding is 6 months old, or if that little person you're holding is 106 years old. If you can, if you're not afraid of intimacy, and most of us are to some degree, some more than others, it's an unconscious thing to open ourselves up, but if you could be the nurturer or the nurtured, I recommend being both.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could find somebody to hold and tell them it's going to be okay, or even ask somebody, you know, if they ever need that, like husbands and wives and all the dysfunction in the relationships, imagine what could be done on a video like this if someone heard that. Because if I would have had that when I was younger, it would have been a lot better. I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't have as much. There would be
Right.
some neurons in my brain
Right.
that canceled out that.
Right, because
feeling.
you'd have that. Everything's going to be okay, you know, and you don't go to that hopeless state.
I didn't have that at that young state. So as a man, as a boy, and then a young man, and now a man growing up, I had to fight for it. I had to fight for the little bit of peace and harmony that I've had. And it's still, but at the underlying levels, you know, I'm still dealing with this feeling of ill at ease, like looking over my shoulder, like what's going to happen next? What's going to go
Right.
wrong next? Or
Well, and if you know, if you were beat up and all of that, you know, you're just kind of, you know, on guard because it's just familiar, and you don't know. You know, I want to say that I learned that from my son when I was holding his head and massaging his head and loving him and telling him it was going to be okay. That's what he would tell me, and that was the hardest thing when he passed, because he was my comforter, and he
the whole time?
his whole life, since he was a little boy. He was this beautiful little blonde boy with big blue eyes, and he would lay hands on people. He'd see someone crying, and he'd put his hands on them, and he'd pray for them, tell them it was going to be okay. I mean, he did that as a young child, and he would do that for me. And so when he passed on, I needed him to be my comforter, because he was my comforter all through life. And he'd say, "Mom, it's going to be okay." He'd say, "Don't, just love that person. Just love that person." And that's all he had to say. I mean, he didn't counsel me with all these words and have lots of ideas. Just, it's going to be okay. Just love.
Imagine what a world it would be if we all chose, or were willing to be comforters of one another. That'd be my dream, because that's been what I think I've been missing. I didn't know it, so I didn't know to ask for it, and now I'm able to ask for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've gotten a lot of Chinese massages, but that's different than someone that actually cares about you.
That knows you.
Yeah, that knows you and says,
And
it's gonna
accepts
be
you
okay.
unconditionally and doesn't find fault with you.
I hope that the husbands and wives and the boyfriends and girlfriends and the moms and the sons and the dads and the daughters can find ways to comfort one another, to tell each other that it's going to be okay, and to hold each other.
And to unconditionally love one another.
Yeah, well,
You know, without judgment, without criticism.
I was at my counselor's yesterday. Sorry, everyone. I was at my counselor's yesterday, and it was just, you know, it became, the way she explained it is like, you're all up here. Of course, she was talking about just all American men. They're just disconnected from this. in general that can take place. And then there's, then there's other people that had those experiences where they did shut the heart off. So for Dan McDonald, it's all been up here. And what he really, really is willing, hoping, praying, believing for a miracle, that this thing can quiet down a bit and not try so hard to find answers.
Yeah.
And fix everything.
And connect.
And just bring some ease and presence. And I saw how yesterday she was working me through these exercises, and I was just like, I can't feel. Because I was talking about spirituality and stuff, and she's like, your spirituality's all in your head. And I was like, wow, I have all the concepts down right, but it would be sure nice to embody that and just have that ease.
Right.
So this video, hopefully what it does is maybe plant some seeds, because we really all want deep healing. And my job, my niche, so I can feed my kids, is raw foods. But I'm here, and I always was, to heal myself. What does that mean? Well, it's not really heal. It's just embracing the wholeness that does exist, which will press out.
Right. And we're all a part of each other. We're all brothers and sisters, no matter what tribe we came from. We're all brothers and sisters. And as I'm healing myself and learning to love, I'm, spreading that. Someone else can learn that. We need to step forward and be the example, because what you learn isn't really taught, it's caught. It's caught by watching someone else walk it out. That's why we get it in our heads, because we don't see the example. When we grew up, my family was very dysfunctional too, and I didn't see it lived before my eyes. I didn't know, so I just delved into drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and it was in the middle of the 60s, and I thought I was having a blast, until all of a sudden my heart was just shut down and broken and crushed, and because we thought it was about peace and love, but there wasn't really peace and love going around.
It was more like escaping.
It was more like lust and drugs and escape, and it was
interesting.
Some people think, oh, I wish I was here during the 60s. Well, I survived the 60s and almost didn't survive the 60s. At one point I OD'd on drugs. I was in the hospital, and someone they drove me there. There were horrible things happening. A lot of my friends OD'd and died, and I know a lot of people whose friends died from overdoses or jumping out of windows because they thought they could fly. Just crazy stuff.
LSD, baby.
LSD.
Okay, well, thank God the 60s is over. We're in 2015.
And boy, I'm 63 years old, and that's not very old. Actually, when you're in your 60s, you're still young. When you're in your 70s, you're in the youth of your old age. And when you're in your 80s, you're in the middle of your old age. And when you're in your 90s, well, then you're old. But 40s, 50s, and 60s, you're still a baby. You're still a baby, you're still young. But in all the years that I've lived, I've seen people evolving to a point where, people are learning to love. They're learning to open their hearts. They don't have the dysfunction. The other day when we went to that tea house, right behind you, there was a couple, and they had two little girls, those two little blonde girls. Do you remember them? One of them came over and was playing peekaboo with me, and I was watching them. The mom was taking pictures with the kids and the dad. Those children were the happiest children I've ever seen. You could see they were loved. You could see they were loved, and I wanted to go over there and say, your children are loved. I can see it on their faces. It was beautiful. And I have grandchildren. I had 5 children, and they're all grown. and I'm raising my granddaughter now. I have 10 grandchildren, and it's awesome.
One of them's right there.
One of them's right there, over there. She won't stick her pretty
We're
pretty blue bangs and black hair in the picture, but we're gonna get her.
gonna make a salad dressing and get her off the
Yeah,
ranch.
get
the
her
Hidden
off the
Valley Ranch.
Hidden
No,
Valley
we won't.
Ranch. We
Let
might.
me see what I can do for you here. So, are you complete?
I'm complete.
I'm complete.
All right.
We're gonna have a food party, a movie, watch some Sadhguru, and we do some other things. So I was gonna end it, but I'm finally able to ask for the nurturing and the soothing that I've always needed, and so it's helping me at an unconscious level. And I am getting that. Everything's gonna be okay.
Everything's gonna be okay. Everything's good.
Everything is good.
It's
Yeah, it's
good.
like we can even go further than that. Everything is great.
It is.
Everything's fine.
It's good.
It's perfect, yeah. And we get soothing, and that soothing is what's going to heal this world. So we should, if anybody got anything out of this video, talk to your husband, talk to your wife, talk to your girlfriend, talk to somebody
Just,
somewhere.
yeah, just love and nurture people.
Yep.
Love and nurture. We all need love. All we need is love, right? And nurturing.
What it does for our nervous system when we have another person to be there for us and have the cuddle parties, that's what we call it, you know,
Yeah,
cuddle parties.
cuddle parties.
And all you husbands and wives out there who are like, got a bunch of junk, you know, go get some
And-
counseling,
yeah.
go talk it out, or just read a few books on communication and say, so what you're telling me is it's not really about the garbage that I didn't empty. It's more like that I'm not being responsive to you. And she says, yes, honey, now you're getting it. And she can open up. It's not always the guy that's closed down, but sometimes it is. So we can just, you know, I'll be getting into more of that as time goes on here, just learning how to communicate in my relationship and be vulnerable and create real intimacy with, you know, your loved one and your mate or whatever. It can be
Right.
top-notch stuff. Very important, I think, to me. So, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up for Taffy and the time we spent here. So, thanks
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
Peace.